were some options for single women who found themselves pregnant?
Well, unfortunately, women during that time found themselves as victims. Biology was destiny. If you became pregnant, your choices were to marry the person if they would marry you. And sometimes that wasn't somebody who would make a good father, bring the child into possibly a very unhappy marriage, unhappy home. And the child, not necessarily being a wanted child, could become an abused child. That was one option. Another option would be to become a single mother and to single-handedly raise the child on your own. Third option would be to bear the child and give the child up for adoption. In fact, it was very common that women would be shipped off to, quote, visit an aunt for the duration of their pregnancy, and they would be taken to some place like the Florence Crittenden homes, where they were cared for until the pregnancy, and then they give up the children for adoption. And none of those were particularly appealing. Of course, the other option was to have an illegal abortion. In any event, a woman's life was unalterably changed for the rest of her life. And the kind of options that she had were limited. Married women had the same kinds of options, and oftentimes they had children, and they already had families and had children and didn't feel that they could manage to raise another one. They didn't have the financial means, or the marriage was not going well, or there were other issues in the marriage that prevented the idea of having a child brought into a welcome situation. My mother, for example, had a friend who had 4 children and was happy, but when she became pregnant with a 5th, they were just managing financially. They couldn't afford another child, and their resources were already extremely stretched. So she made a very difficult decision to have an abortion. And she and my mother drove to Mexico, and as soon as they got across the border, they had been given a telephone number. They called the telephone number they were given, and so came, blindfolded them, and drove them to the location. It was a clean clinic, and the woman got a safe abortion. But what a terrifying experience. The first time I ever got together with women in Rhode Island to start a Rhode Island coalition to repeal abortion laws was in 1970. At that time, there were a number of lawsuits that were starting to take place around the country, like Roe v. Wade. And it's just that Roe v. Wade is the one that hit the Supreme Court first. We started this organization, and the first meeting that we had, we went around the room, there were 10 of us, and we asked the question, have you ever had an abortion? 3 out of the 10 women in the room had abortions, and that was about the national statistics, that one woman out of 3, and 3 out of 10, would have had an abortion at some point during their lives. And people talked about this. For some of them, it was the first time they'd ever spoken about having an abortion to anyone. One woman had a situation where these were all mostly illegal abortions. She found somebody who would perform it. She went to his house. He said, hand over the $600. And then he said, hop up on my kitchen table. Fortunately, it was clean enough and safe enough that she did not have any untoward effects, but oftentimes that was not the case. And just in case you're wondering, $600 today still seems like a lot of money, but $600 in 1970 was approximately $4,000. So this is what she paid, $4,000 to get an illegal abortion where the guy said, hop up on my kitchen table. The next person who spoke talked about having a legal abortion. She was 20 years old, and fortunately she had parents with some means, found herself pregnant, and they took her to the local hospital. You could, in some states, get a legal abortion if you could prove that having the child would do undue psychological damage to you. So she had to go before a panel of 3 male doctors and basically say that she would go crazy if she was forced to bear a child. So after the termination, she had to stay 3 days in the hospital to have DNC. And then for this privilege, she paid $2,000, which in today's money would be the equivalent of $12,500. The other option for women who needed abortions during those days, if you had means, was to go to Sweden primarily. But what a terrifying experience. And these are the kinds of things that women had to go through before Roe v. Wade. And this is one of the reasons why I am a strong advocate of keeping all of the abortion rights that we won in Roe v. Wade, because we cannot go back.